If you live here in Portland, chances are you've heard of the potential for the big one, referring to the large Cascadia subduction zone earthquake that we're due for. We live in a tectonically active region due to a few driving forces. The Pacific plate is moving northward, while the Juan de Fuca plate is crashing into North America and subducting beneath the North American plate at an oblique angle. And this results in a large-scale clockwise rotation that's observed in paleomagnetic data and GPS, and the arrows on this map show this direction of motion relative to stable North America from GPS. And so while there is this potential of the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, the big one, there's also potential for earthquakes on more local crustal faults. So my research is focused on the crustal faults in the Portland area. Those are shown by the black and red lines on the map on the right. And so these are basically cracks in the upper plate that are accommodating stresses from this clockwise rotation. And these faults are mapped as quaternary active, meaning there's evidence they've been active in the last 2.5 million years. But for a fault to be considered active from a hazard standpoint, it has to have ruptured in a big earthquake that deformed the ground surface in the last 12,000 years. And so my research question is, when was the last big earthquake on one of these faults? So the Gales Creek Fault is shown in red, and as you can see, it's the longest fault in the area. Research done by other groups in the last few years has found that it has been active in the Holocene. And this is big because this is the first Holocene offset documented on a fault in the Portland area. So we looked at the northern part of the fault, and where the yellow bar is, we went out to the field with some shovels and dug a trench across the fault to expose the stratigraphy below the surface. And so down here is the photomosaic from the trench wall with lines of interpretation on it. And so this is the ground surface, and you're looking directly northwest into the fault. It's about 2 meters deep and 12 meters across. And the black lines delineate the stratigraphic units, and the red lines are the faults. And we found evidence for 2 surface rupturing earthquakes in the Holocene. Evidence for the second earthquake back comes from this unit right here. This is a buried soil, meaning it used to be at the ground surface. When it was at the surface, an earthquake occurred and caused it to become back tilted into the hill slope, and then it was buried with this loose, unconsolidated material and big rocks. An earthquake occurred after that opened up this fissure right here and was infilled with surrounding material. And so we used radiocarbon dating to constrain the timing of these earthquakes, and found that the most recent earthquake that opened the fissure occurred about 1,000 years ago, and the one before that occurred about 7,000 years ago. So the Gales Creek Fault is indeed Holocene active, and it's likely the other faults in this area are active as well because they're experiencing the same regional stresses. And so this research provides evidence that the local crustal faults in the Portland area are a geologic hazard that we should be aware of.